So, this is going to be a potentially unpopular opinion, but let's talk about why you should stop setting goals because goal setting is broken. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. If you follow my YouTube channel, my podcast, or my articles on LinkedIn, you would know that I am pretty obsessive about goal setting. It is one of my favorite rituals, whether it is the start of a new season, whether it is the start of a new year, whether I'm following the 12-week year by Brian P. Moran and Michael Lennington. I am all about setting goals at every opportunity. So this was a challenging idea for me to get my head around, but it also really aligned with how I was feeling this year. This year, I felt like I have had one of my most productive years yet. Yet, when I compare it to the goals that I set at the start of the year, a lot of it doesn't relate to what I envisioned the year to be, and yet it has been so fulfilling. But I can look at my goals and still feel like I have fallen short. So, how is it that you can make progress but not do it in the predefined terms that you set when you made your goals? So as I was having these thoughts recently is about the time that I stumbled upon the book Tiny Experiments by Anne-Laure Le Cunuffe. And this really got me thinking about why goal setting is broken, which she highlights through the book, but she has some great alternatives to this. And it really just resonated with what I have felt this year after a decade of goal setting. And while I might not entirely stop setting goals because I think I've just done it for so long, it's really made me think about doing it in a different way, taking a different approach, or trying to replace that system eventually if I can. Maybe I can do it straight away, maybe it will take time, but we'll see. It's definitely an idea that has really got me curious. And one of the concepts in it is about focusing on growth loops instead of fixed ladders. So when you think about when you set goals, it's usually related to this linear goal setting process. But the most progress is usually made when you focus on growth. If you think about just the way that nature evolves, for example, nature evolves to adapt to its environment. It is constantly changing and experimenting to see what works best, which is the premise of this book. It is all about experimenting as opposed to setting these really predefined restrictions as to what is going to achieve success. Because often in that, we aren't taking into account how complex a system is. And this is what really got me thinking about systems theory and systems thinking, which I learned about many years ago and found really interesting. And I feel like if you think that you can predict what success in a system looks like, then you are underestimating how complex that system is. And as the book highlights really well, the goals that you set are usually not actually yours. Whether you realize it or not, you most likely have borrowed those goals from your peers, maybe from your family, your friends, maybe from the celebrities that you follow online, and you haven't taken enough time to think about how much they are actually relevant to you or resonate with you. And this goes back to a concept that a philosopher described as mimetic desire, meaning that we desire something because other people desire it. So we may not be stopping to think about how relevant that is for us. And outside of setting goals based on what other people are doing or what other people are trying to achieve, you are likely developing ill-informed goals, which brings me to my second point, which is that you don't know what success looks like. So as I said, success in a system is really hard to predict. For example, if you think about the rapid impact that AI is having on almost every role and every industry, that's something that maybe even just 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the majority of people wouldn't have been able to predict. So you don't actually know what success in the long term or maybe even in the midterm related to your professional life or your personal life might look like? So you could be, for example, investing in a career that is potentially going to be made redundant over the next few years. You could be investing in a technology that is going to be made redundant. And that is why it becomes so important to constantly experiment, to respond to the changing environment, to take those results and to develop your next experiment based on what those results are. And by doing that, you are then evolving without having to set these really linear, predefined goals that might actually become really redundant or actually put you behind what the marketplace is needing going forward. And what I really love about this idea of tiny experiments versus setting goals is that it gives you grace to be able to change your mind. If you look back, for example, on the goals that you set at the start of the year, do you still even want all of those things? I know when I look at some of the things that I put on my goals list for this year, I don't even know what I was necessarily thinking with some of them. I just feel like such a different person in some aspects related to what I thought I wanted at the start of the year, because we are constantly evolving. Every season you feel different, every month you feel different, sometimes every day you can feel different. So what you have set for yourself at the start of the year might become irrelevant, and you might be then just doubling down on these things that you don't even necessarily want. So experiments give you more grace to be able to evolve as you evolve and as your environment evolves as well. And what this made me realize when I read this book is that this idea of experimenting is all about the consistency of the experiment as opposed to what the outcome necessarily is. Because by being consistent, you are going to see results either way, because you are getting all of that feedback and you're getting all of that data and you're showing up consistently. You are going to progress no matter what. And it made me think about investing and how it is a little bit like investing. So you get the most benefit when you are consistently showing up, when you diversify your investments and your portfolio, and that you never are as smart as you think you are when it comes to investing. You aren't going to necessarily outsmart the market as you think you might be able to. Some things will pay off and others won't, but you learn from those things either way, and then it all sort of evens itself out if you take a diversified strategy. And so that is what made me realize that it feels a little bit like that when you are experimenting and constantly showing up. Either way, you are going to win if you take that approach. And by putting all of your eggs into the baskets that you predefine as being the best picks for your career or your professional life, you are potentially missing out on the gains that you could have from the things that you didn't put in that basket at the time. But if you aren't setting goals, then what are you doing? That is where the idea of pacts come in. And as the book describes, a pact is a commitment to yourself. These can be pacts that are more intense. These can be pacts that are quick. But the idea is that it is time bound in some way. So it's not things like I am going to go to the gym every day because I want to be healthy. It is I am going to go to the gym 3 times a week for the next month, for example. It's being very specific. So there's an end date to what that pack is that you are making. And that might be a short pack, as I said, like a short, easy, quick win, or it might be a long pack. So this might be, for example, as I think the author of this book did, something like I will publish 100 articles in 100 days. So it is still an experiment with an end date, but it's framed differently to the way that you might traditionally set a SMART goal, for example. And the idea is that you are experimenting. You're creating a trial so you can get that data and see how you want to move going forward. And the idea of framing your development through the lens of pacts as opposed to goals means that there aren't any predefined notions as to what the outcome will be. So you're not saying that I'm going to have X amount of subscribers by this date. You're not saying things that you can't necessarily control. You're focused on the experiment that you are delivering, which is really where the power of the pacts actually come in, because instead of being focused on the outcomes, it is focused on the process. So it's all related to your input into the process, which you can control as a part of the experiment. And the more repetitions that you have as a part of whatever pack you are creating, for example, I will write 25 newsletters in 25 weeks, then that means that you have more data to be able to work from. But it doesn't necessarily have to be intimidating data either. You just want to feel like you have enough information to be able to trust your results and have some sort of an informed opinion moving forward. And if you're constantly experimenting, then you will start to notice what activities actually energize you and what drain you, because you might have had things on your goal list that you find that you don't actually enjoy. So why are you investing more time into those things? Whereas you might find that there are activities that you really enjoy that are getting good results in your data as well. So you can invest more into the things that you feel more aligned to, because the experiments have shown you that. And even before I read the book Tiny Experiments this year, I actually moved into 2025 with this in mind relating to reading. So if you follow this channel, you would know that I love reading. For the last few years, I've read over 100 books a year. And this year I actually read 3 books a week. I have for every single week of this year so far. As we head towards the end of the year, I imagine I will be able to keep that up as well. But what I moved into this year doing a little bit differently to what I would normally do is that I was a little bit more flexible with what my reading would entail. So usually over the past few years, several years, I have really focused on having a theme or related sub-themes for each year. So I will read everything that I can find on a particular topic. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this approach and I would highly recommend this, because this has really broadened the breadth of my knowledge on particular topics, but also allowed me to compare different perspectives and be able to find my own. But going into this year, it was really nice to just have that flexibility. So it meant that whenever a new topic of interest presented itself to me, I could immediately start researching that topic in real time. And these have turned out to be so broad in their disciplines, relating to everything from health to theology and so many other topics in between. And I've just really loved that I could give myself that grace of just being able to move with wherever my mood wanted to take me. And I feel like my knowledge has also increased so much with this approach as opposed to what I was doing in previous years. As I said, I would still do that, but it's just been such a refreshing approach, and it wasn't related to predefined goals. And this also, as the author highlights in the book, really takes us back to what we used to do more when we were children. We would just explore, constantly experimenting with new hobbies that we wanted to have, new skills. I remember one day I would be all about songwriting. The next day I would be in the garden. The next day I would be trying to paint something. So this experimenting approach just takes us back to more of that mindset that we may have lost touch with, where we are curiosity driven, because that approach is what is going to show you what your true capabilities are and what you are most aligned to. Thanks so much. If you want to learn more about my favorite high value hobbies, then check out my previous episode on this topic. I'll see you in the next episode.